Broncos country, welcome back to another video here on the Parker Loves Sports YouTube channel. My name is Parker and I hope you are having a fantastic day or night whenever you're watching this video. In today's video, we're going to be going over my top 6 quarterbacks that I personally want the Denver Broncos to draft in the upcoming 2024 NFL draft, and we'll get to more reasons of why I want the Denver Broncos to draft a quarterback specifically early in this draft here in a little bit, mostly because this is an insanely talented quarterback class, but more on that in a little bit. Before we get started, I want to just ask that you leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as the support is greatly appreciated. Leaving a like helps push the video out to as many people as possible, and subscribing would help me fill a goal of mine to make this a career. Obviously, right now the channel is small, so I can't really have a career and sustain off of it, but by subscribing, you'll definitely help me reach that goal of potentially making this a career one day. And so if you could do that, that would mean the absolute world to me. Now, the first thing that I do want to mention is a couple reasons of why I'm making this video. The first one being Russell Wilson is accepting offers for his Colorado mansion, and so that likely signifies the end of his time here in Denver. So I don't know if it's beneficial. I don't know if Sean Payton has told Russell Wilson, hey, we're going to go draft a rookie. Hey, we're going to go get another guy. But the sense from Russell Wilson himself is that he is not going to be back in Denver next season. So we got to look for a new starting quarterback next year. And I think drafting a quarterback early in this NFL draft is key. We need a young guy, and we need to get our quarterback of the future, and we need to get Sean Payton's guy. Now, there are 6 quarterbacks here. I could easily see all 6 of them going in the first round. For me, I have a first-round grade on 5 of the quarterbacks. And, it's controversial. We'll get into it in a little bit of why it's controversial, but there are 6 very talented quarterbacks that I'd be fine with the Broncos selecting early in the draft, either in the first round. So in the first round, I guess, at pick 12, if we trade up, or in a trade down scenario where we pick up a second round pick or trade down and select a guy later, in any scenario, I think the Broncos have to select a quarterback. My preference would be early in the draft, but that's just me. And then the second reason is I recently released a mock draft in where the Broncos traded up to number 1 overall and selected Caleb Williams as a number 1 overall pick. And then I did an entire mock draft around that, and I felt like it got a pretty good reception of just the scenario if Sean Payton does want to trade up and go get his guy at quarterback. I don't know if that's going to be Caleb Williams. I don't know if it's going to be a Drake Maye. I'd be happy with both of those. I don't know if it's going to be a JJ McCarthy, someone who I'm super high on. But I felt like it got a positive reception. And so before the combine starts, I want to get this video out there, and I want to post my top 6 guys who I would want the Denver Broncos to draft in the upcoming 2024 NFL draft. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the disclaimer. But before I do, as always, I just want to remind you that Jesus is King, and I pray that you give your life to him, as he's got a plan and a purpose for you. And if you believe with your whole heart that Jesus died on the cross for your sins, then you'll go to heaven. It's that simple. It's that easy. It's not through any works that we can do. It's not through going to church. Those things are good, but they're not what gets you into heaven. It's through our faith in Jesus, that he lived a perfect life, sacrificed himself, and died on the cross, and rose from the dead 3 days later. And if you truly believe that, then you'll go to heaven. It's that simple. It's that easy. Those are your first steps. And as a Christian, I feel it's important to push this message to as many people as possible. A lot of people don't like that I'm doing that, but I don't care. It's an important message to me. And so because of that, I have to spread the gospel. And so, yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into the disclaimer. All right, so here is the disclaimer, and it's actually going to be one of 3 disclaimers. It's this one on the screen that you're seeing, and then 2 smaller ones, or I guess shorter ones. But before we do get into that, I just want to ask for those of you who skipped ahead to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as the support is greatly appreciated. So as for the disclaimer, one of the first small ones is that these 6 quarterback rankings are my pre-combine rankings. Now, personally for me, I doubt that anything is going to change with these top 6. I'm pretty set. They could always change, of course, but I'm pretty set on these 6 being my top 6 quarterbacks entering the 2024 NFL Draft. I guess the order could theoretically change, but I feel confident in my personal preference of the way I have these guys ranked. Now, the other thing is I did do scouting, and I'm not the greatest scout in the world. Every year I watch film and I try and get better, but I'm no expert, and I have watched film on these guys, but I did use the website NFL Draft Buzz to help give me the strengths and weaknesses of these players alongside and on top of my own scouting. So I just wanted to give a big thanks to them as well. And then the big disclaimer, as you can read on screen, says these rankings are my personal opinion of who I want the Broncos to draft. If you disagree with that, that is fine, and I respect everyone's opinion. However, if you do disagree, please do so respectfully. Because look, listen, it's fine to have different opinions, and I think different opinions are a very good thing. You know, it's a bunch of diversity, and, you know, everyone gets a say, and not necessarily agreeing is fun because we get to hear other people's perspective, not necessarily meaning we have to change their mind, but just give our own perspective. And so I think conversation and disagreements are good. But if you disagree with my opinions, that's fine. I just ask that you do so respectfully. And now with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump in to my number 6 quarterback that I would want the Denver Broncos to draft this year. So my number 6 quarterback is going to be Michael Penix Jr. out of the University of Washington. His measurables, he's 6'2", 212 pounds. He's a redshirt senior. He obviously went to the University of Washington and is 23 years old. Now, personally for me, I am not the biggest fan of Michael Penix Jr. In fact, that's why I have him ranked in the 2nd round. Is I would prefer, if Michael Penix Jr. is the Denver Broncos guy, I hope that they trade down and take the best player available in round 1, and then Michael Penix Jr. in the 2nd round by acquiring a 2nd round pick in a trade down scenario, because we don't have a 2nd round pick. And so I guess another scenario would be the Broncos trading down, pick up a 2nd round pick, draft Penix in the late 1st round to get that extra 5th-year option. I wouldn't hate that, but for me personally, I think Michael Penix Jr. is a 2nd round pick, and let's get into why. So let's start with the pros. And his arm is undoubtedly one of the best in the class. He's got elite arm strength to throw the ball down the field, make sideline to sideline throws, make deep throws down the sideline. Plus, along with his arm, he's got great touch to it, meaning he's able to just drop passes in there and put them right on the money, right in the breadbasket of his receivers. He hits them in stride, so the receivers are able to get rack or yak, whatever you want to call them, run after catch, yards after catch. Either one of them, he's able to hit his receivers in stride so they pick up those additional yardage. And Michael Penix Jr., let's not kid ourselves. He's an athlete, and he uses his athleticism to buy time and extend plays. If the pocket breaks down, he's not afraid to roll out, buy time, keep looking down the field, and make defenders miss, or, you know, using his athleticism to pick up plays and use his legs to go and pick up the 1st down. He very quickly and easily goes through progressions, and that's one of the big things that I do like about Michael Penix Jr. is how easily he does go through his progressions. That's something that is really important at the next level. You just can't have 1 or 2 reads, and then after that breaks down, you got to go to your 3rd and 4th read. You can't panic and start to scramble and start to, you know, get out of the pocket. So I really do like Michael Penix Jr. being able to go through his progressions quickly and easily. And then he's also great at layering his throws. And what I mean by this, and what the NFL Draft Buzz website means by this, is when you have the inside linebackers dropping back into coverage and you have the safeties coming up into coverage, there's going to be a little bit of space in between, behind the linebackers and in front of the safeties. And Michael Penix Jr. is great at layering the throws and throwing behind the linebackers in front of the safeties. It's a pretty difficult throw to make. You know, I was a high school quarterback, you know, did get some reps, wasn't necessarily a starter, but we don't need to talk about that. And that is one of the harder throws to make, is getting it behind the linebacker, but in front of the safeties. You kind of got to throw it in kind of an arc, but it's got to be perfect, because it's got to get up and over and then down. So, it can be a difficult throw, and those are some of the pros that Michael Penix Jr. has. As for the cons, and the cons for me are going to be really the first two are my biggest concerns is Michael Penix Jr.'s injury history. Look, we can't deny that. He has 2 ACL injury. He had an SC joint dislocation on his non-throwing shoulder, and then he had a dislocated joint in his throwing shoulder. And then I don't know what happened, but at the end of the national championship game, it did look like Michael Penix Jr. did end up getting hurt. And for me, the reason why this is such a big concern and such a big con is because the quarterback is the most important position on the field. And one with injury history going down, that's not something that the Broncos can really afford. The quarterback touches the ball every single play and drives the offense, and really is the most important part of the team, as many of us Broncos fans can tell you, because of the quarterback carousel that's been going on. And so having a guy who has gotten tons of injuries and could go down for a majority of the season, miss a season with an injury, that's something that really, really scares me. And that really, to me, is the biggest reason and the biggest negative of me not wanting Michael Penix Jr. The second one is his age, as he's going to be 24 years old by the start of the NFL season. And when you think about that, let's just say theoretically the Denver Broncos trade down and we use a late first-round pick on Michael Penix Jr. Well, after his first 4 years of his contract, he's going to be 28. If you pick up the fifth-year option, he's going to be 29. So he's going to be in his late 20s by the time he signs that second contract, when a majority of quarterbacks and the younger guys who come into the league, they're typically signing their second contract by the age 26 and around then. So I would prefer to have a younger quarterback just due to the fact of having him for long term. Now, obviously, if he's going to have the longevity of Brady, of Aaron Rodgers, that's not a big deal. But the typical quarterback time frame of like a decade to 15 years might be a little bit shorter with Michael Penix Jr. being older. And not just Penix, but some other older quarterbacks as well. Another thing is sometimes Penix has lapses in his accuracy. Sometimes he won't be super accurate with the football, and he'll either overthrow it, throw it out just out of reach of one of his receivers. And so the accuracy does have to be cleaned up a little bit. The next one, the offensive scheme as a lefty. When you think about it, your whole offense and your whole offensive philosophy has to be flipped if you have a left-handed quarterback. The blind side, the left tackle, if it's a traditional right-handed quarterback, then becomes the left tackle, and everything is flipped because of the lefty. And does Sean Payton want to do that? I don't know. Maybe if he likes Michael Penix Jr. enough to draft him as his future quarterback, maybe he doesn't mind flipping the scheme. But for me, that's a con, because you have to flip your entire scheme, and maybe it's not as difficult as it sounds. I'm not obviously a head coach, but to me, the offensive scheme as a lefty, I'm not too sure about that. Plus, I don't know, this is just a personal preference, and it has nothing against Michael Penix Jr., but watching a lefty throw to me is really weird, and it just doesn't look right. I'm not knocking that against him, but it's just really, really weird, and I definitely prefer right-handed quarterbacks. And then sometimes Michael Penix Jr. has a slower release in his mechanics. Sometimes you'll see this big, long windup, which obviously causes him to get the ball out slower. He can get strip sacked, he can get sacked, and he can get tackled if he's winding up and it's taking him longer to throw and release with his mechanics. But that's another, that's just another knock against him. But Michael Penix Jr., I wouldn't mind if we traded down, picked him up in the late first, early second. As for the stats of Michael Penix Jr. during his college career at both Indiana and Washington, he played in 49 games with 1,067 completions on 1,685 attempts. He threw for 13,741 yards, 96 touchdowns to 34 interceptions, and he had a passer rating of a 146.6. Next up, moving on to my number 5 quarterback, it is going to be Bo Nix. So for Bo Nix, I personally have him as a late first, early second round pick. And that's just my preference of where I'd like to draft him. You know, I could see the Broncos definitely drafting him at pick 12, or, you know, maybe trading down to picks a couple spots, maybe to like the 20s-ish, and drafting him just to get that fifth-year option. But in my evaluation, I do have Bo Nix as a late first, early second round pick, although I do expect him to get taken higher than that because just of the importance of the quarterback position and the need. Quarterbacks typically get selected higher than they're evaluated to be. But as for Bo Nix, he is 6'1", 210 pounds, and he is a senior out of the University of Oregon at 23 years old. So let's get into the pros and cons of Bo Nix, and here are the pros. Now, I do want to say that a lot of the verbiage I kind of did copy from NFL Draft Buzz. Of course, I did do my own scouting and evaluation as well, but, you know, once again, I did use them as a resource as I am still developing my skills as an evaluator and as a scout. So let's go ahead and jump into the pros. And so the first thing is Bo Nix, where he really thrives at the end of the day, is staying on script and executing plays from within inside the pocket. And if the pocket is clean, or if he's staying inside the pocket, that is where he's going to thrive. But that's not where it just ends. He is also solid at buying time and extending the plays, rolling out to the left, rolling out to the right, and buying time. He can make plays off script while under duress, while being chased, while having pressure in his face. And while he's off script, he keeps his eyes down the field and, you know, he looks for the open receiver. He's going to wait, he's going to wait for the receiver to come open and throw it to them if he does. And then if not, he can always throw the football away, or he can scramble and take off with his legs, which, he's a pretty decent athlete. I won't say he's one of the best in the class, but I will say he is a decent athlete. He's got a lot of velocity on his passes, and it allows him to thread the needle when, I guess, you guys know what threading the needle is with the football. I don't have to explain it, but he can thread the needle with his velocity, essentially getting it through two defenders very, very tight together, and a very small point to get it through, and he can throw it and thread that needle. I don't think it's got a lot of velocity as this example I'm about to give you, but the Elway cross, a lot of Broncos fans know that. John Elway would throw it so hard that when the ball would hit the receivers in their chest, it would leave a little cross that's at the nose of the football and would go into their chest and leave a little mark on there. I don't think it's that type of velocity, but he does have some velocity to his throws. And then in terms of his mechanics, this is something where I'm still trying to improve as a scout and evaluator, but according to NFL Draft Buzz, he has great mechanics, and he has a quick release, and he has great accuracy with that release. So, he's going to get the ball out quick, and he's going to be very accurate with it. Now, let's get into the cons of Bo Nix. And one of the biggest ones, and it's the same thing with Michael Penix Jr., is he's going to be 24 years old by the start of the season. And like I said, I would prefer to have a 22-year-old, 21-year-old, 22-year-old, so that way when they sign their next contract, it's going to be in like 26, 27 years old. So, yeah, I mean, that's just my personal preference, but it is a con for me. Bo Nix does have a tendency to telegraph his primary read, and he stares him down pre-snap, and, that's just not great. Needs to work at, obviously, not staring down his first read, but also going through his progressions, which is an area that I really like Michael Penix Jr. at, is how he's able to go through his progressions and advance to the next read and just find the open receiver. And that's something that Bo Nix does need to improve on, and something that's something that is a very important skill at the NFL level. Sometimes Bo Nix will force throws when he is extending the play, when he's rolling out and extending the play. If he doesn't have an open receiver, sometimes he will force it. Jeez, I can't talk right now. You would like to, like I gave the suggestion earlier that he'll throw it away or he'll take off with his legs and run. Sometimes he does force throws when he's extending the play, just wanting to make a play happen. And then that just can't that can't happen at the NFL level. You can't play hero ball, and so that's something that he does need to clean up, as well as he needs to have more pocket awareness when facing pressure. Geez, can I speak or what? I'm sorry for all the mispronunciations right now. But he does need to have more pocket awareness when facing the pressure. When the edge rushers are coming from behind him, he needs to have the awareness to step up and step out to start extending the play maybe a little bit earlier. And that's just something something I'd like to see out of Bo Nix. And so those are some of the cons for Bo Nix and why he's my number 5 quarterback heading into the combine. So as for the stats of Bo Nix, he played in 61 games with both the University of Oregon and the University of Auburn. He completed 1,286 passes on 1,936 attempts. He's thrown for 15,352 yards and 113 touchdowns to 26 interceptions, and he has a passer rating of a 149.6. So that's Bo Nix, and let's go ahead and jump into my number 4 quarterback. So my number 4 quarterback is going to be J.J. McCarthy, and this is where the controversy occurs because there's a lot of people, and a lot of people who I follow in a lot of, I guess, my circle of the Bronco fans interactions that I have, mostly on Twitter. I am in the pro J.J. McCarthy group, and I know there's really 2 groups, the anti-McCarthy and the pro-McCarthy. I am in the pro-McCarthy because I like the upside. And I'll just say this, and I'm going to say it later, but when you're drafting a quarterback, it's not always necessarily going to be based on the production. Sure, the production does help, but you're looking at the tools that the quarterback possesses and tools that you think you as a coach can develop and bring to the next level and to make them an elite quarterback. And J.J. McCarthy is a very toolsy quarterback, and so I think Sean Payton sees that. You guys have probably already seen the clip from Paul Allen from the Vikings that if the Vikings want McCarthy, they might have to be aggressive and trade up because it looks like Sean Payton is a McCarthy fan, as am I. You can see that I do have him as a first-round pick. I would love for the Broncos to sit at 12 and draft J.J. McCarthy. I think that would be an excellent pick. However, based on everything I'm seeing, it looks like the NFL is a lot higher on J.J. McCarthy than the media is, and so the Broncos might have to trade up maybe to pick 8, somewhere around there to get McCarthy if they're interested in him. But, who knows? We're still about a month out, just over a month out from the draft, so yeah, we'll have to see how things play out as we approach draft day. So as for the measurables of J.J. McCarthy, he is 6'3", 202 pounds. He is a junior out of Michigan, and he is currently 21 years old. I believe he will be 22 by the start of next NFL season, though. So some of the pros for J.J. McCarthy are going to be his elite arm talent. He can throw the ball with tons of velocity anywhere he wants on the field. He's got great arm strength, and that arm talent is just there. If he needs to make a deep sideline throw, he can. If he needs to throw it short, he can. The arm strength and the arm velocity that he has is very talented. It's a shame we really didn't get to see it more at Michigan because of how much of a run-heavy offense he played in at Michigan. But not only does McCarthy have a very solid arm, but he is a really solid athlete as well. He uses his legs to run and pick up first downs, buying time and extending the play with his legs. He's going to roll out left. He's going to roll out right. I feel like I'm rhyming, but he's going to roll out, buy the time, keep the eyes down the field, looking for an open receiver. As you can see, the third bullet point, when he extends the play, he keeps his eyes downfield looking for the open receiver to throw it to them. But, the thing about McCarthy is because he's such a great athlete, he'll use his legs, and he's not afraid to, if he's scrambling, run and pick up the first down, or, like I said, he'll keep his eyes down the field and look for the open receiver. He's got the athlete where he is a dual threat quarterback. He'll hurt you with his arm or he'll hurt you with his legs. He's got a strong pocket presence, and he's able to drop the balls right into where they need to be with the receivers on his deep ball. Maybe he can be a little bit more accurate in terms of his passes. That is a negative and something we'll get to in the cons, but sort of like Michael Penix Jr. on those big, long, arcing passes, he's able to drop the ball right into where they need to be in between the coverage. I mean, there'll be 2 guys, and he's able to drop it right in between that coverage, right into his receiver's hands, right into the breadbasket. And it's very impressive to just just see him like pick apart coverage. There'll be times when I was watching his film that there would be two receivers close, or I guess not two receivers, but two defenders close to his receivers, and he would be able to get the ball to his receiver where really only his receiver could make a play, and that was very, very impressive to me. He's strong in the pocket. Like I said, yeah, I kind of mentioned that. Strong in the pocket. When he's in the pocket, can drop the balls right in between the coverage of his defenders. You guys have got to look up some of those plays. I wish I could show them on here, but copyright would take me down. And then the last bullet point I have, which I mentioned earlier, is JJ McCarthy is an extremely toolsy player with tons of upside. And what I mean by that is you look at tools that you want to draft. Does he have that big arm? McCarthy does. Is he a super athlete? Can he run? Can he use his legs to hurt you? McCarthy does. He's got the escape ability. He does show moments of having that high football IQ, not maybe the highest in terms of the football IQ that I've seen, but he is up there in terms of quarterback smartness, and he's got a lot of tools. He just needs to put it all together with the right coach, and I believe that Sean Payton is the right coach to help JJ McCarthy put it all together. I do think JJ McCarthy would be talked about a lot more and a lot more positively if he didn't play in that Michigan offense, because it was a pro-style offense, which is good. It does help the transition from college to the NFL easier with that pro-style offense, but they were also in a very run-heavy offense where it would be a bunch of times you'd hand it to Blake Corum, you would hand it to Donovan Edwards, and they would do a majority of the work. If he was asked to do what Penix did and Bo Nix did and throw it 60 times a game, I do believe that he would be talked about in the same tier. Well, not in the same tier as them. I think he's higher than Bo Nix or McCarthy, but to the general public reception, and I think he would be talked about up there with those. I guess up there by the mainstream media with the Caleb Williams, Drake Maye, Jayden Daniels. Not necessarily saying that he is better than them, but I'm just saying I think he would be talked about a lot more if he was in a more pass-heavy offense. So in terms of the cons for JJ McCarthy is he does need to bulk up and get bigger because his current frame is 6'3", 202 pounds, and I feel like if he gets hit, that is going to just get him killed. So I do think he needs to put on a little bit more weight and bulk up. He can be inaccurate at times with his throws, forcing his receivers to adjust mid-route. So if you have a receiver running a 10-yard dig, sometimes he'll put it behind him. They got to turn around and catch it, really stopping their momentum. So that is something that he does need to work on. He also needs to learn how to use different throws. The lob pass, when you play Madden, there's the bullet pass, there's the touch pass, there's the lob pass. Yeah, McCarthy needs to work on the lob and touch passes. Sometimes he will throw them, but a lot of the time, a lot of his passes are bullet passes. And so he needs to not throw all bullet passes all the time and learn how to throw the touch and the lob pass. And that will really significantly help his game. Then sometimes he'll telegraph his throw by staring down his receivers, which it does need to be fixed. Like I mentioned with Bo Nix, that is something that I don't like. The staring down of receivers, but something that I'm hoping Sean Payton can teach him in terms of the mental game, not staring down his receivers and going through his progressions to find the open receiver. And I believe in Sean Payton that he can get that out of him if this is truly Sean Payton's guy. And then he's a developmental quarterback who needs to learn to read defenses. I said process his reads and go through his reads, but he does need to learn NFL defenses, and he is a developmental quarterback. Do I think he's going to start week 1 right away? No. Personally, I don't think he is. Sean Payton could start him right away and kind of feed him to the wolves and get him experience by just playing. But I think he definitely sits a year, maybe sits half a year, half a season before he jumps in and is the guy to start right away. But that's just me. I don't know what Sean Payton wants to do. I do think he's developmental. I don't think he's NFL ready at this point, but I do think he has the upside of being a solid starter in the NFL. So that is my number 4 quarterback. And Or actually, no, we still got the stats. Sorry. For JJ McCarthy, he played in 40 games. He completed 482 passes on 713 attempts. He's thrown for 6,226 yards, 49 touchdowns to 11 interceptions, and he has a pass rating of a 160.5. So that is my fourth best quarterback in JJ McCarthy. One of my guys, someone who personally I would not be mad at if the Denver Broncos drafted. I know a lot of Broncos country feels differently, but like I said, this is my list. This is my personal preferences. So yeah, that is my number 4 quarterback in JJ McCarthy. Let's go ahead and jump into my number 3 quarterback. So my number 3 quarterback in this year's draft, and therefore the number 3 quarterback that I would want the Denver Broncos to draft, is going to be Jayden Daniels. Now, in my opinion, I feel like Jayden Daniels is going to be the least likely for the Denver Broncos to draft because I can see scenarios where the Denver Broncos select Michael Penix or Bo Nix, maybe in a trade down scenario, or sticking at 12. I can see us drafting JJ McCarthy at 12 or even trading up for McCarthy because according to Paul Allen, JJ McCarthy is Sean Payton's guy as of right now, as of recording this. Or I could even see the Broncos going for a home run and trading up to the number 1 overall pick to grab their guy in either Caleb Williams or Drake Maye, either of whom I could see the Broncos selecting at number 1 overall. And I feel like if you're the Broncos and you trade up to number 1 overall, you're not going to select Jayden Daniels, not because he's not talented, but in my opinion, you got 2 generational quarterbacks right there in Maye and Williams. So to me, I do think that Jayden Daniels is the least likely unless the Broncos want to trade up to number 3 with the Patriots, or if Jayden Daniels starts to fall, they trade up a little bit to grab him. To me, Jayden Daniels would be the most or the least likely for the Denver Broncos to draft, but let's go ahead and let's get into Jayden Daniels' measurements. So Jayden Daniels is a 6'4", 210-pound quarterback who is a senior at my favorite college football team, the LSU Tigers, and he is 23 years old. He turned 23 in December, so he will be 23 by the start of the NFL season. Alrighty, so the pros for Jayden Daniels is, let's get things started right away and just say that Jayden Daniels is a dual threat quarterback. Absolutely. He can hurt you on the ground with his legs, or he can hurt you through the air with his arm. That's all that needs to be said essentially, but to go a little bit more detail is that he is an elite athlete who's easily able to maneuver and evade pass rushers well in the pocket, and he uses his legs to pick up first downs on the ground. Like I said, he's going to stay in the pocket. He can evade the rushers in the pocket if need be. And, if pressure breaks down and he needs to escape, he'll buy time, or he'll use his legs to run for the first down and run for extra yardage to hurt you on the ground. That is part of Jayden Daniels' game. He's not afraid to hurt you on the ground. As well as being able to hurt you on the ground, he can hurt you through the air with his arm, as he has a great arm in terms of strength and accuracy, and he can put the ball anywhere you want on the field. He can go to the deep third. He can throw the deep sideline balls, the go balls. I will say the only thing that you would like to add to Jayden Daniels' arm is more velocity, and I guess this could theoretically go in the cons section of this video, but to me, the ball's got there a little bit slowly, and I feel like a lot of people have noticed that he just needs to add a little bit of velocity to get the ball there quicker, so that way it doesn't give defenders a chance to get back into position to make a play or to recover if they've made a mistake. Just needs to add a little bit more velocity to his throws, and that's something I do think that if drafted by the Broncos, and not just by the Broncos, but when drafted into the NFL wherever he goes, I do think whoever drafts him will be able to coach him to throw with a little bit more velocity on his throws. And another great thing is I mentioned Jayden Daniels is a threat to run, but if he needs to buy time and he needs to roll out left or roll out right and throw on the run, he is one of the best at throwing on the run in this draft class. That is something that is very, very hard to do. I like to think that when I was a quarterback in high school, I was solid at throwing on the run, but definitely not at the level that Jayden Daniels can right now. So in terms of his ability to throw out on the run, he is one of the best in the entire draft class. So if he's rolling out right, for example, waiting for a receiver to get open, and he's able to throw on the run, he doesn't have to set his feet to deliver a good pass. And that is a very tremendous skill that I like to see in quarterbacks. And then something you love to see in quarterbacks as well is he makes great decisions with the football. He's not going to put the football in harm's way. He's not going to make these bad throws. Of course, every quarterback makes a bad throw and a mistake once in a while, but for the most part, Jayden Daniels, when throwing the football, is going to take care of the football and not throw an interception and not throw a turnover, so that way he keeps you in the football game and he doesn't give the other team opportunities to get back into the football game. As for the cons of Jayden Daniels, so the first one is that he struggles to go through his progressions after his first few reads are shut down. He goes to his first, then he goes to his second read, sometimes maybe makes it to a third read. But after that, once they're shut down, I feel like he kind of starts to I won't necessarily say panic, but I feel like he just starts to take off and scramble with it, and he needs to learn to go through all of his progressions to find the open receiver. And that is something that I kind of like to see, in the sense of he does start to go through his progressions, but I think that in the NFL, he needs to be coached to continue to go through his progressions to find the open receiver. And I think when he is drafted into the NFL, I do believe that whoever drafts him will be able to help him and will be able to coach him into going through all his progressions. Now, this next thing is something that I'm not too familiar with, as I am still growing as a scout and as an evaluator. But according to NFL Draft Buzz, Jayden Daniels has inconsistent throwing mechanics and his throwing motion, which lead to inaccuracies in his ball placement. So when he's trying to place the ball, because he's inconsistent in his mechanics, according to NFL Draft Buzz, that's going to lead to inaccuracies in ball placement. Sometimes he's accurate, like I said, in the pros, but sometimes he can be inaccurate due to his inconsistent mechanics and his throwing motion. And then I will say another con is he has a small frame at 6'4", 210 pounds. Similar to J.J. McCarthy, I feel like he needs to beef up a little bit, eat a little bit of steak, so that way he doesn't take these vicious hits, which he took in college. And man, did he take some vicious hits. If you look it up on YouTube, he took some violent hits. And so in the NFL, I do think he's going to need to beef up to be able to take on some of those hits, but you don't really want him to take on some of those hits, obviously. You want him to be able to run out of bounds and just not take any hits. You don't want your quarterback taking hits when scrambling. So I guess another thing you could add is he needs to learn how to go out of bounds when the defenders start to close in on him. So those are some of the cons for Jayden Daniels. And if we go ahead and look at his stats, he played in 55 games between the LSU Tigers and the Arizona State Sun Devils. He had 953 completions on 1,438 attempts. He's thrown for 12,750 yards, 89 touchdowns to 20 interceptions, and he has a passer rating of a 158.4. So my number 2 quarterback in the 2024 NFL Draft is none other than Drake Maye. Now, I know a lot of Broncos fans who have Drake Maye as their number 1 quarterback in this draft, and I completely understand that perspective. It is difficult for me to choose between Drake Maye and Caleb Williams because, in my opinion, I think both are generational talents. And I think in many other draft classes, Drake Maye is the clear-cut number 1 quarterback. So I think the 2 franchises that get Caleb Williams and Drake Maye are going to be super, super lucky. And, maybe it's the Broncos. Maybe we trade up for one of them. But yeah, Drake Maye is extremely, extremely talented. He's a top 5 player in this draft, and he's going to be going in the top 5. More specifically, I think he's going to be going in the top 2, top 3 at the latest. Drake Maye is just super talented, super impressive, and whoever gets him is going to have their franchise quarterback of the future. For Drake Maye's measurables, he is 6'4", 230 pounds. He is a redshirt sophomore out of the University of North Carolina, and he is 21 years old. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into the pros of Drake Maye. So here are the pros of Drake Maye. The first thing you notice about Drake Maye is that he is an elite pocket passer. He wants to sit in the pocket, and he wants to find the open receiver, and he wants to make that throw. His arm talent is amazing. He has an elite combination of arm strength and arm accuracy, where he can throw the ball anywhere he wants on the field. He can throw the deep balls. He can throw underneath. He's got the arm accuracy and he's got the arm strength. But the thing that Drake Maye also has is he has the velocity to get the ball down the field quickly and to where it needs to be. And so Drake Maye has a cannon of an arm. He's got a great arm, one of the best arms in the entire draft. And on top of that elite arm, Drake Maye possesses a rare combination of size and speed. He's an underrated dual threat athlete. He's 6'4", and he's got great speed for a quarterback. Of course, it's not going to be this 4.3 speed, but for a quarterback, he's got some speed to him, and he is not afraid to take off and run with the football. If the pressure breaks down and he needs to escape, he's not afraid to scramble, run for the first down, and pick up extra yardage. And he's not afraid to buy time and keep the play alive with his legs. He is a dual threat quarterback, and I feel like a lot of people don't understand that Drake Maye is a dual threat quarterback with the combination of his arm, with the arm strength, the velocity, the accuracy of his arm, and the ability when he's under pressure to be able to take off and run and scramble with the football. Drake Maye is definitely a dual threat quarterback, and it's one of the reasons, or I guess not one of the reasons, but those are some of the reasons why he is a generational quarterback and a top quarterback in this year's NFL draft. So as for the cons of Drake Maye, there's really only two that I have. And the first one is that Drake Maye needs to make quicker decisions on both if he wants to throw the football or if he wants to take off and scramble with the football. And the second thing is, if he's going to throw the football, who he wants to throw the football to. He just needs to make that decision a little bit quicker. And then the second one is, when he's under pressure, sometimes he'll make a risky throw, which will result in a turnover. So something that you would like to see Drake Maye do is not force a pass and not have these risky throws, but take his time, and if he's under pressure, either scramble with it or throw the football away and give yourselves another down, and don't give the opposing team better field positions. But yeah, those are really the only two cons that I personally noticed. So for the stats of Drake Maye, he played in 30 games with North Carolina, completing 618 passes on 952 attempts. He's thrown for 8,018 yards, 63 touchdowns to 16 interceptions, and he had a pass rating of a 154.1 while playing college football. And so here we are, my number one quarterback in the 2024 NFL draft, and that is none other than Caleb Williams out of USC. I definitely think he should be the number one overall pick, and whether that is going to be to the Chicago Bears or if the Bears trade the pick to somebody else, I think he should be the number one overall pick. Who knows? Maybe the Bears, like Justin Fields, they're going to stick with him and they want to take Marvin Harrison Jr. Then I definitely think he'll be the first quarterback selected off the board. But in my opinion, he should be the number one overall pick. He's up there. He's one of the top players in this draft. If you want to put him at number one, you can. I don't have my player rankings list out there yet, but I think it's Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Brock Bowers all competing for the number one player in this class. But we'll get into the strengths, the pros, and cons of Caleb Williams here in just a second. But here are his measurables. He is 6'1", 215 pounds. He's a junior out of USC, and he is 22 years old. So as for the pros of Caleb Williams, he has an elite arm talent where he can throw the ball with tons of strength, accuracy, and velocity. He can put the football anywhere he wants on the field. He gets it there quickly with the velocity. He's pretty accurate. I won't say he's the most accurate quarterback in this draft, but he is accurate, and he does have the arm strength to make any throw that he wants. He can throw the football anywhere he wants on the field, like I was just saying, but he can also do it when he's off script and off balance, whether he's rolling out, he's backpedaling. If he needs to make the throw, he can make that throw. Obviously, you would like him to sit in the pocket and make those throws, but USC's offensive line last season was not very great, and so he was on the run a lot. He was scrambling, he was off script and making throws, and it was very impressive to watch some of the off script and off throws that he would make. He faces a lot of pressure, but it really didn't affect his throws as he still delivers with accuracy under pressure. And then another thing, obviously, when you've seen Caleb Williams, is he uses his legs to pick up extra yards, extend the play, buy time. If he needs to go run for the first down and pick up yardage with his legs, he'll do that. If he wants to buy time by backpedaling, rolling out, and buying time, waiting for the open receiver, he can do that as well. He is a dual threat quarterback like Drake Maye. I'd say he typically likes to run more than Drake Maye, and maybe that was because his offensive line was breaking down and not the greatest last season, but He can throw off script, off platform. He can throw from in a clean pocket, although we didn't really see it a whole lot last season. But yeah, Caleb Williams is a very talented quarterback. And as for the cons, is he played in a simple college offense where mainly he would go through one read. It was a one read where you would you know what the simple ones are. You know, there's the there's the corner hitch. It was a one read offense, so he didn't go through many progressions, and that's something that is a little bit concerning for the NFL, because when you go into a pro style offense, you are going to want to have your quarterback go through his reads to find the open receiver, as I've talked about plenty of times with the previous quarterbacks. And then another thing that he needs to work on is he holds onto the ball for a little bit too long. Sometimes it would work out, sometimes it doesn't. He does need to work on getting the ball out quicker. So that is something that he does need to work on, just holding on the ball for too long. That's not going to work out really in the NFL. And then he is a little bit undersized when you compare him to other NFL quarterbacks. Caleb Williams stands at 6'1", 215 pounds, but with recent quarterback trends, you know, Russell Wilson was shorter, Kyler Murray shorter. There's a ton of other shorter quarterbacks in the NFL that have kind of paved the way for Caleb Williams and the undersized guys. You know, Lamar Jackson doesn't have the biggest frame. So Caleb Williams is undersized, maybe not the biggest, strongest frame, but honestly, I don't think that's really going to matter at the NFL level, but I did put it here on my cons. And then as for Caleb Williams' stats, he played in 37 games with between USC and the University of Oklahoma. He has 735 completions on 1,099 attempts. He's passed for 10,082 yards. He's thrown 93 touchdowns to 14 interceptions, and he has a passer rating of a 169.3. But, ladies and gentlemen, that is my list of my top 6 quarterbacks that I want the Denver Broncos to draft here in the 2024 NFL Draft. These are the top guys I would want the Denver Broncos to get as their next franchise quarterback, or hopefully franchise quarterback. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. If you disagree, make sure you do so respectfully. And as always, leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're brand new. But my name is Parker, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace out.